When you first start out in photography, it can seem quite challenging to learn all the things you need to learn. Well, in this video, I'll go through 5 mistakes that you can avoid that'll help you speed up your photography journey. So let's get to it. A mistake I made when I first started photography was not paying attention to the histogram, only relying on the light meter of the camera and reviewing the screen on the back of that camera. But the screen does not give you a true representation of how well that image is exposed. If I had paid attention to the histogram when I first started, it would have saved me a lot of disappointment in poorly exposed photos. The histogram shows the distribution of tones in an image. It displays the brightness levels of the pixels in the image, ranging from black tones on the left to white tones on the right hand side. The height of each bar of the histogram represents the number of pixels at brightness level. It's an important tool to evaluate the exposure of the image and can determine if the images are overexposed too bright or underexposed too dark. I realised the histogram is an important tool to evaluate the exposure of my images and allowed me to make informed decisions about the camera settings and the lighting conditions. So this is a fine example of what the histogram can show you, and I've set the camera up here specifically in an extreme contrasty area, so I've got a lot of shadow and a lot of highlights, and the histogram can represent that. But my light meter is telling me I'm correctly exposed, but my histogram is telling me I've got a high level of shaded area, as in shadows, and it's also clipping the edge on the right hand side to tell me that I'm quite exposed on the highlights. So this is a fine example of using a histogram to get a nice evenly exposed image. So as you can see here at this focal length, that the tonal values are nice and even throughout the range. So you're not clipping to the right, which is too high, blowing out the highlight, and you're not clipping to the left hand side and underexposing the shadows. You've got a nice tonal value all the way through, and this will turn out to be a nice photo. The second mistake you can make is not being aware of your surroundings, and if you're taking a picture of a subject that there's nothing growing out their head, like this for example, the lamppost, or there's no clutter left in the scene, like your camera bag, like that. Be sure to keep the scene clean and your subject positioned in such a way all the focus is on the subject and not in the surrounding area. And be sure to make sure that the subject is in focus and not the background. It's always a good thing. Another thing to consider with your surrounding area is the type of light you have and its direction. If it's a bright sunny day, then try and move your subject into a shaded area so they're nicely evenly lit. And also, if it's a partially cloudy day, wait for the sun to go behind the clouds to get that lovely diffused light, and then your subject to be nicely lit. The last thing you want is some unflattering shadows on your subject, which, say for instance you get those dark eyes, for instance like Alice Cooper. The last thing is your subject will not appreciate that, will they? And if it's landscapes that you're doing, then obviously moving to a shaded area like a canopy of trees or wood, you may be able to get some nice compositions there, and you'll have a lovely shade to deal with. And mistake 3 is not carrying a tripod with you. I know they're inconvenient, they can be quite cumbersome, but they're an important part, as you might come across a situation where you need a tripod. Say you've got a longer exposure than you can do with handheld, and you haven't got a tripod to do it. Therefore, you've missed a shot. Another real simple mistake that you can make is rush out the door and not check that you've got everything for your camera. What I mean by that is spare batteries and they are charged up. Memory cards are not left in the reader, they are in the camera, and you do have some spare. And filters for your lenses to make sure that when you go out that you have the filters ready just in case you need them, like polarizers and ND filters. And also check the weather to make sure that it's in favourable conditions for what you want to do and what photos that you want to take. And then also take a step back with your camera settings. Just go over the camera settings. Make sure that you're recording your photos in the right format that you want. For instance, I like to record in RAW format because I like to do a lot of post-processing with my photos. You don't want to leave it in JPEG, and therefore you're restricted in what you want to do with your post-processing. And on top of that, just go through the settings like your aperture, your focal length, and to make sure your subject is in focus. And also just go through the rest of the settings of the camera, that the modes are in the right mode. So as in if you've got detection, autofocus detection for people. Make sure it's in people if you're taking a picture of people and it's not in animal mode or vehicle mode. These are simple mistakes that you can easily make by just rushing. So it's always take a step back, go through all the settings, and therefore you'll get your photos that you want and you'll be happy with the effort you've made. Well, that's it for this video. I really hope you got some value from it. If you have, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button, ring the notification bell for the next upload, and also put some comments in below for me to read them, because I do look forward to that. And I'll see you in the next one, and you take care.